Yeah, well, though, then thank you for having me. I just say some words about Validas. So we are worldwide the only company specialized on tool and library qualification. And our vision is to guide the world to be more safe. So we'll help people building systems. We don't build systems, but our contribution is to make the tools and the libraries safer. So you can't simply build a safe system using unsafe tools. That's not possible. Yeah, we do run a podcast about tool and library qualification. So if you want to get deeper into the topic, it's free, available on every iTunes, App Store, wherever you're searching for podcasts. That's a building in Munich. We're located here in Munich, where I'm currently in. And that's me and Peter who are driving the company. As Linus said, you'll need to have a safety plan. And the safety plan really describes the process, how you want to build a system that is safe. And this means the ISO 262 does not say you should have a crash every million kilometers or less or something like that. So they just define safety by having a safe development process. So if you have a safe development process, your system will be safe, provided that you follow the safety process. And that's exactly what is done with a safety plan. In the safety plan, you can describe your process. And your process is, can say, yeah, we'll use the programming language C, and we will use this compiler, and we will measure code coverage using CTC. So this will be your plan, how you want to develop your product. And regarding to the tools, yeah, you should use safe tools. You cannot use any compiler or any coverage tool. You should classify your tools and think how critical are they. And well, compilers and coverage tools are typically critical. If you're using a debugger or other not so critical tools, you might end up in saying, yeah, we can use those carefully. And you'll have a safety manual that says what is allowed to do with the tool and what not, and what extra effort you have to do. And this is the mandatory part from the standard. And in case you like to improve your efficiency, then you can do a tool qualification plan and get a tool qualification report. But that's not necessarily. So sometimes you need it and sometimes not. I'll come to this in the next slides. Yeah, once you have this process, and interestingly, the tool qualification is part of the process. Why is that the case? Yeah, because you use the tool to develop the system. If at the end, once you have developed your system, you recognize, oh, my compiler was buggy and there might be bugs in it, so that's very bad. So you should do the tool qualification as part of the safety planning. And this is explicitly required from ISO 262. It really says you should do it early, the tool qualification, before you select a tool. You just imagine you select a coverage tool, and then after the project end, you'll see, oh, my coverage tool is not safe. We need to do another one, and you can restart a lot of work. That's not good. So that's a safety plan. And once you have the safety plan in place, and once it is compliant with the safety requirements from ISO 262, then you can start to build a product, and it will be safe if you follow the plan. So you will be building a safe product, and then you will have a safety case that documents that the product is safe. And well, this is just a documentation that you have followed your plan. So if you plan to use CTC and measure code coverage, then well, in the safety case, there have to be some coverage reports, and they have to have 100%, or they have to be explained why it's, let's say, dead code or other things. Yeah, and for the tools, well, for the tools, you need to document that you have used the tools as described in the tool safety manual or as classified here. And well, we recommend to have something like a safe tool usage report where you just state, we have used this tool and we have been following the guidelines in the safety manual. So that's a safety case that you have to deliver when you build a safe product. So you don't, let's say you are a supplier for an OEM and you want to add him some software or safety elements, then you will ship the safety elements to them, but also the safety case. So they will ask you for the safety case, and they will look into it and say, oh, where's the code coverage report, or where are other things? You are free to have your own process, but the process has to be compliant. So there has to be a compliance report. you can use different compilers as you like them, but every compiler has to be classified, that one that you use. So ISO 262 gives you some freedom, but then requires to have a process description that is compliant with ISO 262 and the evidence that you have followed it. Yeah, just an example. So, and this compliance report has really for every requirement, there has to be an argumentation. And you can say, yes, for part 6, clause 9, software unit verification, ISO 262 says, oh, there's a requirement 6.9.4. You have to measure structural code coverage. It shall be measured and there shall be listed, and these are the metrics that Dynas has been showing previously. Yeah, that's the requirement, but what's your plan to do? In the safety plan for all ASILs, you can write, let's use CTC in the current version to cover this requirement for all units we have. This is a good plan. In the safety case, yeah, you will have to provide the code coverage reports, which can be much work depending on code complexity and other things. So this is the safety case for the requirement 6.9.4.4. So for every requirement, you should have something like that. Of course, also for the requirements in part 8, confidence in the use of software tool. Yeah, what do we need to have? Yeah, you can say, let's qualify CTC in the version we have, and that's a good plan. And also in the safety plan, you should have a tool classification report, and you will get a tool qualification plan, tool qualification report, and tool safety manual. And those documents will be generated from the CTC Tool Qualification Kit. So this will just include, will generate the reports in your environment, and it will also have a compliance report included, because that's an important thing that we can argue that the QKit qualification was really done compliant with the safety standards. Yeah, and in the safety case, you just say, oh, our safe usage statement, we have used CTC version X.Y, and this was qualified. So this is a good plan. Let's come to the classification a bit more detailed. So ISO 262 requires confidence in the use of software tools. So you cannot say, oh, I think it's a good tool, I have confidence, or it's made by a big company, therefore I have confidence. So no, that's not possible. ISO 262 says you exactly how confidence is defined. So, and the confidence is defined in 2 steps. First question, can the tool have an impact to the product? And if it has an impact, then you need to look whether what could go wrong in principle. So really the worst case scenario, what could go wrong? Now, let's take CTC as an example for tool impact. So CTC is not like a compiler. It does not really bring something into the product. So if the compiler compiles a correct program to a wrong executable, well, this is dangerous and goes directly into the product. CTC is not like this, but does it have an impact? Yes, it has an impact, and because if the code coverage is not measured correct, then you might end testing even if you haven't considered all cases. So this is the impact. And also there's an impact because if you argue in your safety plan, we'll have code coverage reports, then of course those reports have to be correct. They are part of the safety case. So this is how to determine the impact, and CTC has an impact. Next question, and this is very difficult from the tool provider's point of view, what could go wrong in the worst case? Well, tool can crash, then you might be angry. From the safety point of view, something which is crashing is not dangerous, doesn't do nothing. It's very bad, and you'll complain, or you would complain, but it's not safety critical. From the safety point of view, of course, if you have a wrong coverage result, this is very critical, because you might end testing, and wrong can be too high or too low. Either it's too high, it's exact, or too low. And if it's coverage is too low, so you just assume you have done covered every test case, and CTC would say, oh, you are at 90%. Well, what would you do? You would look into the code, you will trace it down to the statements that are not covered, and then, or CTC pretends that are not covered, and you will say, what a nonsense, I found a bug, because they are covered. So for a too low coverage, you have a high detection probability. But for a too high coverage, so if CTC says you are done, you have 100%, you don't dig into the code, you just trust it. And therefore, in the case that 100% is not 100%, then you will not detect it with a high probability. And this is then here the computation of the tool confidence levels, which is explained here. So if the tool has no impact, TI1, then you get TCL1. And if there's an impact, TI2, then it depends on the TD. So if TD is high, then you get also TCL1. If TD is TD2, medium, then you get TCL2. And if the TD is TD3, then you will get TCL3. Yeah, so that is somehow the computation of this tool confidence level. And in most cases, coverage tools are TCL3 because you just trust them, and therefore they require tool qualification. TCL1, so if you have a high, no qualification is needed for TCL1. You just have to use the tool carefully, because TCL1, either there's no impact, then you really don't care, but if there's an impact, there's a high detection probability, and you have to do something to detect the error. So TCL1 is something like, so if VerifySoft would say that CTC is TCL1, this would mean don't trust this tool, because you have to detect all potential errors with a high probability. This is not a good selling argument. So TCL1 is not a good selling argument, and I'm very happy that CTC is a TCL3 tool. You can trust it. Yeah, but you can trust it only if you have qualified it, and it might behave differently in different compilers. So you might have GCC or Microsoft compiler or any other target compiler. But do we know that is working with this compiler correctly? Well, we don't know. So we cannot test at VerifySoft. We cannot test all compilers of the world. So, but we can ship you a qualification kit that you can run and find out whether this is correct or not. Yeah, so it's mostly you were interested in ISO 262, but there are also other interests there. So how does it look in other standards with the tool confidence? ISO 262 has the TCL levels that I explained here, and here's the method with the potential failures that need to be analyzed and detection probability. So here you have a lot of things to do to come to the tool confidence level. In the other standards, that's quite easier. So you just ask here for DO, for example, standard, is it a verification tool? Yeah, then it's criteria 3, it's TQL 5. So this is just a single, very, very simple classification. But there are differences. In ISO 262, you spend more work here, but you can be more flexible. So for example, if you have a code generator and you generate code and you say, well, I don't want to trust this or cannot qualify the code generator, I need to do something else. So then you can say we could test every generated code as if it was manual written. Well, that's a lot of work, but with this, you have a high detection probability because you test the code as if it was manual written. And then you end up with the code TCL1 for a code generator, which is a constructive tool. So it could create from a correct model a wrong code. And here in DO standard, constructive tools, you get criteria 1, and depending on your risk level, you get TQL 1 to TQL 4. And their qualification is really, really hard, especially for TQL 1, 2, and 3. It's really hard. And the same for ISC. If it's a code generator, it's a constructive tool, it's T3, you have to qualify it. In this sense, ISO 262 people have been a bit smarter here with this method that they say, okay, we do a risk analysis of the tool, and if we end up saying we have a high probability to detect all errors, then we don't need to qualify. That's, for some people, this seems better. I don't think, as I said, TCL1 means don't trust this tool. That's not a good selling argument. But if you're using 100 tools, that might be easier to say, okay, those have TCL1 and I don't need to trust them. So therefore, other standards said, well, this is a good idea, what ISO 262 proposed. And in the new versions of the ISC, there is a workaround. It says, okay, in case you cannot qualify it, you have to do an effective mitigation strategy. This means for all potential errors, you have to have an effective mitigation in place that can detect them. And that's what is done here in the IEC. And a similar thing is in the DO standard. It's also possible to reduce the TQL if you have a high detection probability for all potential failures. So there is a FAQ there that allows to do this. So in principle, all safety standards are similar. So first classify the tool, and if it's uncritical, then you can use it carefully, and otherwise you need to qualify them. Yeah, let's have a look to the, so this was a general introduction to tool qualification. Let's have a look to the CTC Q-Kit. It conforms to several, or to the mentioned standards here, and it's based on a model that we have built. This gives you a lot of flexibility to configure your own use cases, and it also allows you to select different mitigations that you might think be more appropriate. And it's very easy to qualify it. So typically we say tool qualification demonstration in 15 minutes when we do an exhibition or something like that. And, I think currently it runs about an hour, but you do not need to be busy waiting there. You just configure it, let the test cases run, and then see the results. So I will show this later in a short screen sharing, or in a short demo-like thing. Yeah, it contains about 100,000 test cases that have been generated mostly for the MCDC case. So we have been really using a very systematic approach to generate all possible combinations of and or and 2 variables and 3 variables and 4, up to 15 variables are there combined, and we check whether CTC is doing correctly. Not only variables, also constants, so that sometimes it's impossible to reach 100%. Those things are all covered by the Q-Kit. Yeah, it has been developed with us, and the Q-Kit contains a user manual, how to use it, and the best thing is this qualification support tool that you just that guides you like an installer through this qualification. There are test cases inside, of course, a test automation unit that runs really the test cases on your environment, and you can set some paths there. I'll show this later on. Of course, there's a compliance report and the V&V report. And we do also offer you support to it. So in case you have questions about the method or about some findings or other things, then there is some support available that you can directly obtain from VerifySoft. So you just say, I'd like to get the Q-Kit with Validas support, and then this will be all done for you. Yeah, how does it look like? I said like an installer. So the first question is where to run the qualification, which directory you want to have it installed. The second question is which safety standard you want to generate documents for. Third thing is which variant do you run. So is it a BitCuff, or you testing on the target, or is it just testing on the host? There are different variants that impact the available features of CTC. So if you have BitCuff, then you have the bit to DAT conversion for and back, so you can really use only bits as counters. Then this makes it much smaller. Yeah, then this is from another tool. Don't be confused here. This is a general slide, so we can also qualify a compiler. In case you have several tools, you can select it. In case you have several versions, you can select them. And now we are back to CTC. Here's a feature tree. So you see the different condition coverage, decision coverage. You can select which one you're using and which not. And there are some features that are testable. We have test cases for, and some features we don't need to have test cases for. So it's very likely, for example, if you have code exclusion and CTC doesn't exclude the code, you will complain. So it's a high detection probability without extra effort. So we decided not to create test cases for this feature, and therefore it's here marked as mitigatable. Yeah, next step is for the mitigatable features you might have selected, or for the ones where known bugs are available, select the corresponding mitigations. And then there is an optional planning component where you can enter dates or names as if you like. And then it goes to test execution. Second part, you can see the test cases that will be required for your use case, and you can configure it, the path to your compiler, other things. So this is also another thing for CTC. You can configure more things and given options or other things you can configure here. And then when you press finish, the Qkit will start to generate a tool qualification plan and tool classification report, and then starts a script that will run the test cases on the target. Here you see some images which are not from CTC but from other tool, and at the end you will get a test report, a log file here, and say, okay, this was test is done. This will be test results will be imported to the model, and then the tool qualification report is generated. So this is done all automatically. You just press next, select some paths, and then you can run qualification. Yeah, the result will look like this. There will be a tool qualification report that is produced here, and at the end there is a information here that says successfully qualified. So this is the only thing you need to check. If something had happened, you might have no list license or target connection problems or other things might go wrong, that cannot be, then it might fail also. So we might have surprises. So therefore it's important to check the qualification report was successfully qualified. Otherwise you cannot put it to the safety case. Yeah, that's it. I think we will just explain here what Validas is helping company VerifySoft to develop this Qkit. VerifySoft can sell you the CTC tool, which is critical, here marked as red, but it also can give you, sell you this confidence, the CTC qualification kit with the compliance report and those things. So you can get this from VerifySoft. Of course, Validas also helps other users, other customers and CTC users in classifying tool chains or doing other things. So if you have 100 tools and only one of it is CTC, then this is not covered by the CTC Qkit support. So this is something we could address separately if you are interested in. Yeah, well, the summary, the benefits. What is your benefit from the for you from having the CTC Qkit? The first thing, you are compliant with the standard, and it's done in your environment. So if it's done at somewhere else, maybe at VerifySoft, it might not be your environment, and therefore it's very important, and the standard requires it should be done in your environment. It gives you all the required safety documentations for your safety case. You can just take them out of the Qkit and plug them into your safety case, and you're done. I think it's very easy. So 15 minutes work and then run the test cases is easy. And from the method point of view, it's much easier to qualify this than to argue TCL1. Doing this for a code coverage tool is very much work and not nice to do. So, and this you do not need to perform these steps. You can just say at the end, we trust the tool, and then you just use it. So this is very easy, and we have the test Qkit has been built according to our certified process. So Validas has a certified qualification process, and we can guarantee that your qualification will be successfully. So that's a guarantee that we have from this certificate that we can offer. So there will be no extra costs, and there will be no extra delays, significant delays, if you get assessed. Yeah, here's the certificate. Yeah, I think that's it. There are some quotes, of course, from Klaus Lamberts. He says, yeah, our qualification kit built together with Validas is rated best by customers who compared it with other qualification kits. So there are a lot of qualification kits around that involve manual testing. Well, then every time you want to qualify, you need to go through dozens, hundreds, how many other test steps. So this is not a pleasure to do. And yeah, well, this is of course something we try to avoid from your workload, and just to offer you something that goes automatically. Yeah, I think that's it for now.
Oscar, there's one question where I guess the question is, what's the difference between certification versus qualification?
Yeah, that's a good question. So a certificate is just a sheet of paper that witnesses something. And many tools have certificates that certification authorities document this is a good tool. And the biggest difference is that this certificate is not done in your environment. So you need to document which environment you're using, which compiler you're using, and usually the certificate does not, either contains some fixed configurations. We have been testing it using GCC and Microsoft compiler, but if you're using another compiler, it does not really cover it. So certificate is something that is a bit restricted in usage. So therefore, I prefer to have a qualification kit, but if a certificate covers really exactly your use case, this is possible. Let me say another word. In ISO 262, certificate is not even mentioned, the word. So it's not required to have a certificate. It's also not required to have a QKit. Also QKit is not mentioned there, but it's required to have the confidence into the use of tool, and it's required to document the environment in which you're using it and things like that. So there are good certificates that really list explicitly which environments have been tested. So if you would have such a certificate, it can be used. And the last word about certification, since we have a certified process, we can guarantee if you want to have a certificate, we can create you one. So in case you say, yeah, we're using this in this environment and whatever, we want to qualify it, and after the qualification, you can get a certificate. So that's something we can guarantee you that this will be possible. Maybe another word to why does CTC does not have a certificate? Yeah, well, a certificate covers a certain version, and if we every half a year release a new version, we would need to release a new certificate, and then also list all the environments, and it might not cover your one. So therefore, we decided this is not worth it. So we can guarantee that certification will be no problem, but we didn't decide to. We prefer the QKit approach over the certification.
Thank you.